The year is 2025. Home education is legal in South Africa but over-regulated, and the justification for this is based on the belief that some home educating kids may not be on par with the state's educational requirements. Interesting, considering that 8 out of 10 10-year-olds in South Africa who attend public schools are unable to read for meaning. Now the question on HSLDA and everyone else's mind: how in the world did the home education sector end up here?
Here is the history of home education in South Africa in a nutshell.
Between 1868 and 1898, Dr. Andrew Murray travelled through many of the then isolated areas of the Free State and the Greater South Africa. He was a minister who baptized believers and performed marriage ceremonies. On his journeys, Dr. Murray very seldom came across young people who were illiterate, and this despite the fact that there were no schools in most of the areas he visited. Records indicate that public schools only became popular in the late 1890s, yet by 1901, most learners were receiving formal, state-approved education, although some, under very specific circumstances, were still allowed to homeschool. Exemption was granted to learners up to grade 3 level if a family lived more than 80 kilometers from the nearest school, and if the children were taught by a qualified teacher. In 1992, the Association for Homeschooling was established. In 1993, the Meintjies couple was sentenced to prison for home educating their children. In 1994, in the hopes of liberating the Meintjies family, a group action was launched by the Homeschool Legal Defense Association from the USA and AHS. While this action was still being pushed, the Meintjies were granted blanket amnesty and released along with many other South Africans who were imprisoned during the previous dispensation. In 1995, concept legislation was published, which may very well have led to homeschooling not receiving the official recognition citizens were hoping for. A campaign was launched by homeschool leaders such as the late Leendert van Oostrum and the HSLDA. Thousands of home educators in America sent letters to the South African Embassy in the US in support of this campaign. Due to collective pressure, home education was officially made provision for under the South African Schools Act of 1996. In 1998, the Pestalozzi Trust was established in order to preserve and promote the rights and freedoms of families to educate their children according to their own convictions. In 2001, many wrote letters to oppose the revised draft National Curriculum Statement, but the home education sector and Christian collectives' plight in the form of thousands of faxes and letters were ignored by the then Minister of Basic Education, Kader Ashmal, and others. In 2017, the first version of the Bala was drafted, and on the 24th of December 2024, after a long battle between parents and the state, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the Bala Bill into law, and in that moment made citizens officially lose their faith in the Constitution.
Did these parents, in your view and according to your knowledge, submit their own views when this, the bill was out for public comment?
Oh yes, extensively. I think the homeschooling community exceeded expectations in that. So in 2017, when the bill was published for comment for the first time by the department, the homeschooling movement, which only is about less than 1% of the school population, submitted about 20% of all submissions.
Someone once said that our Bill of Rights was put in place to protect individuals and minorities against the dictatorship of the majority, especially if the minority's cause is not a popular one. In a fair South Africa, regulations would have been drafted around who we truly are, and not who they hoped we were or thought they could encourage us to become via threats of jail time.